Are you at your limit? Feeling like all hope is lost? Your party's out of control and you have no hope of getting it back? Maybe a fireball will fix all your problems, right? No. Look, we've all heard the saying, it's better to be respected than feared. While I personally don't think any DM should ever be feared, there are plenty of times where we find ourselves having our campaigns dragged through the mud by our players. There's this idea in the D&D community of being a nice DM, where you're just your player's metaphorical punching bag, and honestly, I think this has gotten a tad out of hand. Most people on the internet who you interact with are going to have really different takes on this, and I personally think that they're all way too polarizing.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Personally, I think all of our focus should move away from punishing our players or honestly being the nice DM and look more at being a fair DM and doing what's fair for your players and fair to the game. Now, there are going to be people who ask, Wyatt, what do you mean by being a fair DM? And to those people, my answer will be, if your players are doing something outrageous, there needs to be an outrageous response in the game. Now, that doesn't mean if your players are going completely hog wild to TPK the party. It just means if your bard is trying to usurp a kingdom and he gets caught, there probably needs to be some bigger ramifications for the party. That way that they kind of understand the scale of their actions mattering in the game. Look, personally, when I'm saying this, I am not condoning people punishing their players. I don't like when DMs punish their players. I feel like it makes your table hostile and honestly kind of puts a sour taste on the campaign that you're running. So what I'm saying is kind of just look for alternatives where you can have impact to what your players are doing and there can be kind of this causality there. And be fair with it. Honestly, if they're doing something that annoys you, but it's really minor, then there's only going to be a minor outcome. Don't give them this major outcome for something super small. Now, to take this back to my original point, if you're being the nice DM, you're going to let your players get away with a lot of unsavory behavior, to say the least. And honestly, that's kind of where I have an issue with it. If you're a DM here, there are rules in your games and there are boundaries on what the players shouldn't cross in the game. And when they cross those boundaries, there has to be results for that action. Now, maybe this is just my self-view, but if my players are doing things like breaking my economy or absolutely conquering an area that I really didn't want them to affect, I take that back on myself. I ask myself, what am I doing wrong as a DM? Is my story not interesting enough? Or did I just do a poor job of catering it to my players? And that's really what I've gotten in the habit of. And most of the time, I found that my players have kind of stopped trying to break my campaign when I focus more on what I'm doing wrong with my story, when I start to see them guiding themselves off the rails, and then I'll use those actions that are equivalent to kind of guide them back on path. Definitely not railroading them, but like if they start conquering a area that's not very interesting to them, maybe they do conquer it, and maybe instead of the campaign I was planning, they have a whole new political campaign of ruling that nation. Or maybe we just talk about leaving the nation itself once they've reaped their chaos and get back on the story and try to focus it more on what they're going to enjoy. Now, in all of these situations, it's important to recognize that you can't always wait for your players to do something before you address it, and that's where conversations come in. As a DM, a big part of your job is having good communication skills with your players. If you're gonna have a situation where there's a whole group of bandits in an area and your sorcerer decides to run headfirst into the known barricade, you need to have those roles pre-prepared, and you can't just wait for them to get there and figure it out on the fly. You need to prep yourself for those kinds of things. And once you're moving more towards the kind of the campaign portion where you've gotten completely off the rails, there are ways to get it back. What you need to do if you want to gain it back is very simple. You sit down and you have a conversation and follow a script something like this. Hey guys, I know we've had fun doing this for the last few sessions, but can we shift back towards the original story? If there's anything you'd like me to adjust to make it more interesting, I'd be happy to work with you guys on that. And with that one little conversation, now your entire campaign is back on track, and you guys can go back to having fun where you're not sitting there pulling your hair out while your players kind of laugh over the situation. This part of the process is so important because it's a collaborative story game, and you don't want to force your players out of something they're enjoying. but at the same time, you don't want to make it an unfun experience for yourself. And that's why as the DM, really you need to focus on your communication skills, because if you have that open dialogue with your players, you can bring a story that has gotten off track back onto the rails really easily. And back to mentioning that D&D is a collective story game, it's important to involve your players when you make the decision to shift the story back to what it originally was, rather than just telling them, no, you can't do this anymore, because it's going to make them feel more involved and it's going to create a better atmosphere for your table to actually have fun and keep going down with the story. Now, if you like this video and you'd be interested in a video on maybe how to foster a little better communication between you and your players, let me know in the comments down below and I'll try to get that video made if there's enough interest in it. Other than that, if you like the video, please check out some of the other ones on this channel, and thank you guys for all of the support. It's been crazy how quickly this channel is growing, and I really appreciate it. All right, I want to make sure everybody has a great rest of your day, and remember, stay inspired.